something she wanted to teach me. And I kind of went along with it for a while, and at some point I switched it around, and I decided I was happier if I actually thought things were going to work out pretty well. And often they did. So wasn't that a nice thing to kind of learn backwards? And start with art, I feel like there's a lot we can learn and teach that's about technique. And there's a lot that has to do with just getting started, just getting into it. You know people, and you might even be those people who sometimes you've studied and learned so much. And then you go to create that space in your life where you're actually doing the art, getting to the canvas. And you don't get there, you don't go there, and you hesitate, or you just can't bring life into it. And for me, it's really about getting the life and the energy into the painting. It's about showing up for your canvas, for your artwork, and making that a really important commitment in your life, even if it's just 10 minutes a day, to just really build it as a practice in your daily experience. My very first kind of art-related job, I feel, was working for my family's restaurant in California, buttering hamburger buns. They put a brush in my hand and a pot of melted butter and 180 hamburger rolls, and they said, okay, butter those, and when you're done, we'll see what else you can do. And that physical, just having that brush and that melted butter, so yummy. And just painting, just the physical movement of getting that butter onto that bread. I mean, I know it sounds crazy, but I was hooked from that moment on. And just that physical feeling of moving with your materials, that has not left me. But I really like when my hand is stuck, I start doing something with my hand in the brush, and it unsticks me. And it's not figuring it out up here and then going, oh, that's it. It's getting my painting going, and then it unsticks my brain. So I want to show you how I work. And if you look around the room, my husband is so sweet. Has hung up examples of painting. So in case this really doesn't work out, or really proof that I have painted. At one point. And what I did earlier before y'all came is I gessoed some things. My mom's a painter, and it took her a year to get past this stage of gessoing the back of a pizza box. And that was a big day. I have that painting. The painting, it was her first painting that wasn't on the back of a pizza box or a piece of cardboard. But if you're stuck, you can take a piece of cardboard, and this is just the back of a pad, and you can paint it with gesso, and that can be a surface to work on. So I wanted something big, so I could do something up here that you all could see. And I painted gesso on some paper, just take some cardboard, and here's some gessoed cardboard. Just the act of gessoing something, covering something with white gesso, kind of gets it all working for me in my brain. And that physical kind of getting it going and starting kind of touches with something else, which in my family was a big deal. Putting on invisible gloves. You ever tried that? So I'm always losing my gloves or forgetting to put them on until after I've started painting, which is like, forget it, that's the point. But I do try to protect my hands now more. So this is just like this funny stuff you get from Dick Blick online, unless you have a Dick Blick in your neighborhood. And you just sort of rub it into your hands, and it kind of settles in there. And then when you go to wash off your hands, it comes off a lot easier, and that oil paint or acrylic paint doesn't penetrate and get into your skin, which is we don't really need it in our skin. So that whole thing of like, just begin, and as you begin to do something, you will learn what you can do and what you can't do. And that for me is an approach which works better than any other. And what I want to show you today is beginning on a surface like this with some ideas that have to do with color. Color is my foundation in my work. And I want to start by showing you just a little way into taking, that's just some yellow, and I'm using little odorless mineral spirits. And my oil paints are off to the side. And I want to just show you how I start working with color. Do I have to know where I'm going? I don't have to know where I'm going. I want to start and see what the color and the feeling of the color is going to work like on this surface. And I do know a few things. I brought a few things that I wanted to look at for color references. I've got a little bit of fruit that my daughter picked up for me at the store. And I've got some green apples and some warmer green here, and I've got some red. So I have in my mind a little bit of a direction where I want to take us. And what I'm going to start off with is the color green. I'm just taking the color yellow, kind of a warm cadmium yellow, and I'm using cobalt blue, which is also kind of a warm. And I'm just going to take this yellow and blue and bring it together to create a green. And if you're all painters, oil painters or acrylic painters, you know that green can be a really mystifying color to work with. It can be too murky. If you're trying to get a really beautiful apple green, sometimes you just keep getting swamp green. So what I want to do is just show you, if you've ever been to the swamps, you know how it gets that yellowy green or moss green, or yellow green on the water when the alligators were swimming through. I was painting when an alligator swam through, just like fun. That's not fun. I said, hi, just keep going.
In Louisiana?
Yeah, she was in Louisiana.
Mandeville. So I'm lightening my yellow. This is cadmium yellow with white in it. And all I'm doing is kind of looking and seeing how are these colors working together. Am I getting an apple green, or is this more of a pear green? This is a cobalt blue I'm using to create that green. So do you notice how I'm taking the paint off my brush? I haven't switched my brush. I'm just getting it a little bit wet with odorless mineral spirits or terpenoid you could use. If you're using acrylic, you just use water. And I'm wiping it off so the brush is fairly clean. I'm not switching brushes. And I'm going to get a little bit more of that pure blue, that cobalt, bring that in there. So I'll end up having basically a range that shows me the movement from a light yellow across into kind of a green, a range of densities of green, all the way over to the purity of the blue I'm using, which is this cobalt. So I have all of 3 pigments here in this little section of the painting. And that gives me one kind of green to look at. And then if I wanted to turn that into a pear, what I would probably do is pick up some of the white and just come in, and I'm going to move this a little bit so you all can see it a little bit better. The shape of that pear. I came in and just took away some of that outside shape. This might bring in to relief just by painting away the negative shape. Here we have a little bit of a pear sitting on top of that table now. So I'm not really drawing, and I'm not really using a lot of color, just the 2 colors. But now I have, by using a lot more white in those areas, knocked away a bit of everything but that central piece. And I have a light yellowy green, and then a greeny, it's a little swamp green. A little bit. And then it's moving into kind of the blue, green, into the blue. And that is beginning to feel a bit like that shape of that pear. And just by coming back in with a little bit more of that negative shape, I can kind of cut in and carve away, and can't really promise it'll be the best pear on earth, but it'll be pear-like, pearish. And if I'm looking at that pear, I can see it's a little bit of a blush of yellow. It's a bit more warm, more of a kind of a reddish yellow. So I'm just picking up a little yellow ochre, and I can go in there and sort of get that on there to warm up that side of the pear. And I might also now want to put some of that bright light hitting on top of that white table. So I really get a feeling of that light coming in from over yonder and touching down right in front of the pear. And it's gone from being a warm-up, kind of get me going and figuring out my yellow and blue and green story, to being a still life painting, which is really fun for me to experience, just the shift from warming up my muscles, my painterly muscles, to actually having something to look at. And I do a lot of landscape. This is kind of my world. I look out the window and see this oak tree above these mountains, which at dawn are lavender and blue, and light is coming up over the mountains, hitting the water, and the sky is just incredibly beautiful, and I just want to go out and sing, but I don't, because I love my family. I love hearing me sing. I got a kazoo the other day, and I've been told I do a pretty neat kazoo. And you have found my instrument. 50 years. So when I go out and I look at that, and I'm like, oh my God, I just have to paint that. It's like, I have to go and paint that. It's so beautiful. But sometimes you just can't go out and do that. You can't get that big energy up for doing a big landscape painting. And the beauty and joy of still life is you can come into your own home and have just set an apple or a pear on the table and do a little painting of that. And it just gives you such a great feeling. You've brought color and form and light right into your own home space. So I'm going to do the same thing with another color family. I'm going to just shift gears and move over to that red apple, which is so beautiful. And I'm going to do the same thing. I just start off with a red and add some white to it and warm up my color muscles. I often am told by people, you know, that they have a lot of questions about my process and how I know what I'm doing. And I don't really know what I'm doing until I'm doing it. And then there can be a click. I'm adding a little orange, which is kind of warm up this red. There's kind of a click with color where you're looking at color and it stops being technical and it starts becoming emotional. I mean, actually for most people, it's always emotional. You're always really just seeing something and feeling something in reaction to it. Yes, we all study different technical ideas about warm color and cool color and making something look atmospheric and how do you make something look dimensional. And these are all really, you know, great things that we learn how to think about and do. But none of those things really explains why it feels the way it does. And ultimately, that's what I'm the most interested in. Not necessarily understanding why, but communicating it. So when I'm working on a project, whether I'm working on a landscape commission or painting the view out my window, or teaching a color theory class online, or doing still life, I'm always looking for that emotional connection to the work I'm doing, to the actual painting. And I never really find it intellectually. I never really find it through a series of A, B, C, D, E, F, G technical steps. What I find happens for me instead is that by playing, by getting into the paint and playing with some ideas and having some places in my practice where it's not about the big painting, the finished painting that's going to hang on a wall, but is instead just working on the idea that I'm practicing, I'm just playing with color. It's in that mindset that I find I get really good work, that I'm able to connect with the emotional part of my being, and out of that, something else happens. So right now, I'm playing around with the idea of red, and I've got cadmium red, orange, making it warmer, adding in white, and lightening that up, and then I'm adding in quinacridone red, which is like alizarin crimson, which is bluer, and even some blue, to bring that red into a full spectrum, fuller spectrum. Is that the rain I hear?
It's
That's
pouring.